Welcome to the Europe Now show. Today our guest is Reinier Van Lanschot, member of the European Parliament from Greens European Free Alliance from the Netherlands. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
What made you leave your job as a supermarket manager to become a politician?
Thanks for asking that question. It was 2016 when Brexit happened, when Trump got elected for the first time, and there was a wave of nationalism going through Europe.
And it ended?
Well, that's debatable.
Sorry.
But at the time, I thought to myself, we have so many problems that are international, and they need international solutions. So we need more European collaboration, not the outdated nationalism from the 20th century. That's all in the past. We need something new, a positive vision for the future of Europe. And then I met the founders of Volt, the first pan-European movement, who had no fame, no experience, no money, but they did have a good idea: create a European political movement. And they asked me to help. And I said, okay, I'm in. I'm going to help 2 hours per week. But then the 2 hours quickly became more and more and more because our movement grew. And fast forward 7 years later, here, or now 10 years later, if you look at 2016, but we started in 2018, so 7, 8 years later, we're here.
But still, isn't the European Union itself a pan-European movement? How do you see that?
Well, the European Union itself is a collaboration of 27 countries that have made steps towards integration that have been immensely successful. The peace we've achieved through the European Union internally is a massive success that needs to be celebrated, just like the prosperity. But the union we created is not working anymore. We have two major problems. The first one is we are not democratic enough. We need to make big decisions, and that requires a lot of backing from Europeans. But now many Europeans feel as if their voice is not heard enough in the European Union. The second big problem is that we cannot make big and quick decisions. That's why we need to get rid of the veto and integrate into a European democracy. And that is what Volt is all about.
Okay, so one of MEPs that I discussed here proposed, for example, the killing of the European Commission. What do you think about this idea?
Well, I think the European Commission now is too big. We have 27 commissioners because every country needs to have a commissioner, and that doesn't really make sense. So you have illogical portfolios. What we need is a real European government. If you love Ursula von der Leyen, you should be able to vote for her and make sure that she is the next Commission President. If you hate what she's doing, then you should also be able to vote for others in order to try and prevent her from becoming the next Commission President. So that is one of the democratic flaws that we have. There is, of course, democratic backing because we have a European Parliament, and in the European Council the national heads of states meet, but it is too indirect. We want Europeans to have more power, and Volt is here to make that a reality.
And Volt has this vision of a decisive, just and sustainable Europe.
Yes.
How are you making it a reality, or if at all?
So, we started after the story that I just told you in about 2017 with 3 people from France, Italy and Germany. Now we are 40,000 people across more than 30 countries. We also have an active group in Poland. And you notice that we are becoming more politically relevant. The former president of Estonia, for example, decided to join our movement. We grew from 1 MEP to 5 members of the European Parliament. We're in the national parliament in the Netherlands, in the national parliament in Cyprus, in local parliaments in 9 countries. So our wave is increasing, and we are calling for a United States of Europe that can create a climate neutral and innovative economy, that can create a more just society, and most importantly for me now, can really take care of our security. Because that for me is the #1 pressing issue right now. The support we need for Ukraine, the support we need to create a European army, that is at the moment what needs to happen to make sure that Europeans are safe.
Don't you think that not all of the European citizens would agree with your claims, and some of them would be quite reluctant of having anything close to European Federation?
Of course, that's the beauty of democracy. Nobody has to agree with everything I've said. On the contrary, my dream is probably the nightmare of the PIS party. But the beauty of democracy is also that you can try and convince people with that vision. And we see that more and more people are starting to be convinced. In the last Eurobarometer, this opinion poll across Europe in its entirety, 89% of Europeans says we need more European unity. So if you ask 10 people on the street, do we need more European unity? 9 out of 10 say yes. And yeah, that's because of the horrible war from Putin. It's because of the threats from the US. They've become unreliable. And for all these reasons, people know we need a united Europe. The populist movements and political parties like the PIS movements, they are a thing of the past. They can remain in the 20th century, but Europeans want to go forward.
Indeed, this Eurobarometer says what you just mentioned, but at the same time it says that 39% of Europeans are actually pessimistic about the European future.
Yes.
It's still less than the ones that are pessimistic about their country's future, that is 41%.
Yes.
However, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
So how do you think it can be paired with 89% that you mentioned?
Yeah. Well, it can be paired quite easily because 9 out of 10 people want more European unity, but 4 out of 10 people say, it's not happening. European leaders, act, act, act. And too little is happening. We continue to see that the European heads of state are not courageous enough to take the decisions that are needed right now. So I'm also pessimistic about the progress. It's not going quickly enough. The war in Ukraine started 4 years ago, and we don't even have an integrated defense industry. Come on, what have we been doing in the past 4 years? Of course, I see some positive developments, but it's not going quickly enough. And therefore, I understand that people say, yes, we want more European unity, but if there's no results, then I'm pessimistic about the future. I personally am optimistic because I believe it can be a lot better. Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
You know, generally optimistic,
Okay.
but it's like the trait of my character, not of my analysis, I would say.
Okay, fair enough.
So, coming back, you were mentioning the necessity of a stronger integration also in terms of sectors like security. At the same time, you were mentioning that your vision is different than the one from, for example, PIS,
Yes.
so Law and Justice in Poland. They have a contrary vision of having this Europe of strong sovereign nations, which is nowhere to be seen any close to federation. How do you see the option in the democracy that you are mentioning of reconciling these two opposite views?
Yes. So I think the good thing is that we now see that so many Europeans want this, that there might be opportunities to move forward with a smaller group of countries. So let's say a country like Hungary or Poland or Slovakia says, at this moment in time, we don't want to integrate further, then maybe we integrate further with the countries that do want it. Because in a democracy, the good thing is that the people can decide the direction they want their country or the union to go into. And that's the way I think we should approach this. If there is a country that says, I don't want to integrate further, okay, but then we move on with the rest. We've seen it with Schengen, with the euro. Not all countries joined at once, but the ones that wanted to and that could, they joined. And later the others that said, oh, I see value because it's working, they joined as well.
And what would be the sequence of joining that you would presume?
So in my ideal scenario, we would move with 27 countries at the same time. And in the coming 5 years, also add other countries to our union, like Ukraine. But a lot needs to happen, of course, before a country like Ukraine can join. But in my vision for the future, in my preferred vision, they are part of it.
Which other countries?
So we see a lot of progression in Montenegro, in Macedonia, in Albania. Those are candidate countries that have gone through a lot of parts of the negotiations and the reforms that are necessary to be ready to join our union. And I'm quite optimistic that in a couple of years, they could be at a point where they join us.
You mentioned the common European army
Yes.
perspective, that you
Yes.
would think that it would be a good idea.
Yes.
Would it work only on our ground of the European Union, or also it would be used, deployed, for example, to support countries that we are allies with, like Ukraine?
It depends on when and under what conditions and circumstances. But I think it is good that when there is a peace agreement, that there are European troops also in support to keep that peace alive. So in my view, that should be a possibility. But primarily, a European army is there to keep us safe, to protect us from Putin's aggression. If Putin would ever decide to, for example, invade Estonia or Lithuania, then this European army could come to its rescue and support. I'm a big fan of NATO, and I would love for NATO to work. But the US has become unreliable. So what we need to do is not say, oh, bye to NATO. No, we need to make sure that NATO can also function without the US. Because momentarily, if the US pulls out, NATO doesn't work at all. So strengthen the European pillar inside of NATO. And at the meantime, make sure that you have common command and control systems for European armies to be deployed. Make sure that you have so-called strategic enablers together, like satellite systems or air defense that are too expensive and too big for single countries to buy and maintain, but for Europe as a whole would work very well.
Now, a different sector of themes. In the EP, in the European Parliament, you belong, as I mentioned, to the Greens group.
Yes.
And I was wondering, looking at your profile, also very Euro enthusiastic, I would say. How is that Euroscepticism is always bundled together with tolerance, huge tolerance for fossil fuels and climate change and climate change skepticism? And with you, yourself, we can see that it's also bundled on this opposite side.
Yes.
How is it?
Because we care about facts.
I think that whoever is they also believe they do care about facts and that you don't.
That's probably what they say, but sometimes I feel they are...
Sounds like very polarized discussion.
Yes, because... for example, the PIS party even said that they are the protectors of the rule of law. I mean, in what reality do you live? There's really, that is complete nonsense. So, in my view, they care more about power than about facts. And one thing that I wanted to mention about us as Volt, we sit with the Greens indeed right now, but we have a vision of becoming the first real pan-European political party that has full presence in the European Parliament with 25 MEPs, our own political group. And that would mean that for the first time in history, a Polish voter that voted for Volt recognizes Volt in the European Parliament, recognizes the program, the people, the branding. And that's a massive step towards European democracy.
Wouldn't it be better to, for example, to ally yourself with a stronger, bigger group, to have more say, more formal positions that also open many doors to constructive networking?
Yeah, so in the end...
And votes.
Our goal is to have the biggest positive impact possible.
But you know, everyone would like to have their political group at the European Parliament.
And we are making it happen by, for example, growing our member base in all these different European countries. We also will participate in 2029 in Poland in the European elections, and then hopefully get MEPs for Volt from Poland as well.
Isn't it strange that you are in the party that is the strongest, probably, supporter of the very active European integration and feathering it, and at the same time you are talking about forming something that is totally separate at the European Parliament instead of uniting it?
Well, I think in a democracy what you need is that people have the feeling that their voice and their desires are fought for in a parliament. And at this moment in time, there is a separation between how Europeans experience it and what happens inside the EU. And I think by creating a political party that they will recognize in the European Parliament, because many citizens don't know what Renew is or don't know what ECR is or the EPP, but they do know the parties they know from a national level. And I think by doing this, we can bridge that gap. And then, of course, our aim is to have a constructive approach and work together with all the pro-democratic, pro-Ukrainian forces inside the European Parliament.
You know, there is this kind of phenomenon of backlash. It happens with all kinds of things happening in the world, but in politics it's usually when someone of one type of politics is coming into power and forces it, then there is this backlash. So this total protest, and for example, we can look at possibly Donald Trump as such a person as a result of a certain backlash among the American people. And when I'm listening to your arguments, which are very persuasive in my view, at the same time I am thinking about the backlash power of what you are talking about.
We are the backlash power. That is because we are the backlash to the rise of Trump, the rise of Brexit, the rise of the PIS party, the rise of the AfD, the PVV in my home country, Le Pen in France. Because of that wave of nationalism, young people, because everybody that started within Volt was in their 20s, because of they saw that happening and they were thinking, oh, I shouldn't swear, but they thought to themselves, I'm not going to let this happen. I should become active. I didn't have the plan to go into politics. The founders of Volt everywhere were not thinking, oh, I want to be a politician, that's why I'm going to jump on this big visionary project with little chances of success. No, they said, we're going to do this not because it's easy or because it gives me a political career, but because it's important. So we are that backlash.
At the same time, the young people in their 20s that you are mentioning that are joining you, supporting you, are also the same people that are supporting Jordan Bardella and, for example, fringe far-right Konfederacja in Poland. So you are fighting for the similar electorate group?
Well, I say there's 450 million people in Europe, and there's 450 million opinions. And our goal is to try and organize Volt in such a way that the people that agree with our view find a place to bring that to reality. And then probably somebody who loves one of the politicians that you just mentioned will think that our dream is his or her nightmare. But that's what part of democracy.
Okay. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you too.